Welcome to our thought for today. My name is Susan and I'm a local preacher at Oakwood Church. And I'm speaking to you from where I live in Oakwood. I don't know whether you're like me, but I've been quite enjoying during this period watching people speaking from home and looking at the background and what's in there. As you can see, mine's quite cluttered and there are quite a lot of bits and pieces around. And there's one of those that I want to share with you today. It's this. I think you can tell what it is. It's a pair of scales. And if you say, well, what sort of scales are they? Well, if you looked at the writing on them, you would find that what it says is inland letter rates not exceeding 2 ounces a penny halfpenny, for every additional 2 ounces a halfpenny. Yes, it's a set of scales for weighing letters to post. As you can tell, it's quite old. The younger ones among you may need to know that a penny halfpenny is worth less than a penny in our present money. So it's not much use to me in deciding how much to put on a letter. Why do I keep it? Well, it's partly dear to me because I inherited it from my father, but it also is something quite special to me too, as it was to him. And the story goes back to 1942, another dark period in our country's history. 1942, my father was in the northeast, the industrial part in West Hartlepool, being bombarded a lot. But 1942 wasn't an entirely bad year for him. He was ordained as a Methodist minister and he also got married. And when they got married, he and my mother got a lot of wedding presents, despite wartime. I know that because she was one of that generation that hoarded things for best. And I inherited quite a lot of things, as good as new, although they're not now. And this was one of the things that they received, and it remained, these scales, on his desk all the rest of his life. And he told me the story of them. There was a member of his church who was an elderly, very old lady, frail and very, very poverty-stricken. In those days, she just had a pittance of a pension, and she only managed to survive because she lived with her son and daughter-in-law and children in a tiny house, and she had to sleep on a mattress in the cupboard under the stairs. My father used to visit her, and just before he got married, he was amazed and humbled when she proudly insisted on giving him these scales as a wedding present for him and his new wife to set up home. She'd somehow managed to scrape together and save the money for this. No wonder that it meant a lot to him and to me. And it brings to my mind a story some of you know from the Bible. From the last week of Jesus' earthly life, he's gone to Jerusalem with his disciples, and they are in the temple. And this is how Mark's Gospel tells this story. Jesus sat down opposite the treasury and watched the crowd putting money into the treasury. Many rich people put in large sums. A poor widow came and put in 2 small copper coins, which are worth a penny. Then he called his disciples and said to them, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all those who are contributing to the treasury, for all of them have contributed out of their abundance. But she, out of her poverty, has put in everything she had, all she had to live on." Something that perhaps meant a lot to Jesus. You think of what he was facing, how within a few days he gave all that he had, his very life, to show God's love for this world. There's an amazing line in one of Charles Wesley's hymns, which talks of when God emptied himself of all but love, God giving of God's very own self for us. I said these scales aren't any use. Well, they don't tell me that now I have to put a 76p stamp on a letter. But to me, they remain very, very special. An inspiration that has gone down through all the years in a way that that elderly lady could never have guessed. So that when I feel, oh, I want to give up soldiering on, I think of Jesus who gave all that he had. So it's the gift that keeps on giving, like God's own love for us.